Well, if you notice the title of the talk, you would realize that it is rather a question poised at you. Given the fact that all organisms die, what then makes life meaningful? Given the fact that all organisms die, what then makes life meaningful? I must admit that it is a very soul-searching question, and it is a question that is raised by Paul in his book, When Breath Becomes Air. A neurosurgeon by profession, Paul had his education in English literature and in history and in the philosophy of science and medicine from Stanford and Cambridge universities, and graduated out of the Yale School of Medicine. But as unfortunate as it could be, Paul, at the age of 36, was given the most devastating news of his life, that he was suffering from stage 4 cancer, a cancer that was inoperable. And thus one day he was a doctor treating the most complicated cases, treating the core of human existence, the brain, and the next day he himself was a patient struggling to survive himself. As a matter of fact, Paul started writing this book when he was in the bed being treated for the lung cancer, and he was not able to finish the book. His wife co-authored it. It is interesting to note that Paul and Lucy decided to have their baby after he was diagnosed with lung cancer, and they went ahead and had the baby, and they named her Katie, and it was on the 9th of March 2015 Paul passed away. However, Paul left us with a very soul-searching question, and the question is, given the fact that all organisms die, what then makes life meaningful? Well, it is a non-debatable fact that all organisms die. In fact, the more you talk about it, the more you end up proving it. As a matter of fact, the average human days of existence on this planet is roughly about 29,000 days. That's all. All organisms are bound to die. But if we are bound to die, what is the meaning of our existence? Well, let us quickly look at the popular avenues through which human beings derive their meaning. First one, how about love? Love is the highest pursuit of life, the most tweeted, the most wrote about, the most sang about topic under the sun is love. In fact, all kinds of philosophers and poets and artists of all ages have taken their attempt at describing love. You probably have heard the story about this boy who went to the Archie's card shop, and he picked up a card which read, "To the only girl I love in the whole of the world. To the only girl I love in the whole of the world." And he picked 10 of those same cards. You see, love is very elusive, isn't it? More people are falling in love today than ever before. But did you also know more divorces are happening around us than ever before? More teenagers are losing their chastity and their purity, all in the pursuit of love. There are more cases of abuse, all in the name of love. There are more children born out of the wedlock, all in the pursuit of love. In short, there are more hearts broken than there are more hearts mended, all in the pursuit of love. Let me quote Nancy Jo Sales, who said this: "Can men and women ever find true intimacy in a world where communication is mediated by screens, or trust when they know their partner has an array of other easily accessible options? If only it were that easy. In the perfect world, we would all have sex with whomsoever we want, and nobody would mind or be judged or get dumped. But what about jealousy and sexism? Not to mention the still flickering chance that somebody might fall in love." Hugh Hefner, the founder and the editor of the Playboy magazine, said this, that he had reserved himself and kept his chastity when he was serving the military, only to come back to his house and to spend the first night with his girl, and to find out that she had actually gone about in an affair with somebody else. And he says, "I was devastated that night." You see, some of us have pursued love as the meaning of life, and we have gone after that lady with all of our heart and all of our strength and all of our money. And after we have gotten her, after we are married, look, we have gone after other pursuits of life in itself. You see, the good news is we all know the importance of love, but the bad news is we as human beings have no clue as to how to keep it or how to pursue it in the truest sense. The second avenue through which we find meaning in life is called as pleasure. You see, every time the word love is used, the underlying connotation behind that word love is that of sex. If you love me, you would have sex with me is a very common phrase that is very commonly used. And to add to that, today our culture says you are defined by your sexuality. Sexual fulfillment is everything today. Sexual fulfillment is seen as being intrinsic to being a complete human being. In short, the world is saying a life without sexual satisfaction is no life at all. I'm sure you know this, that pornography is a $19 billion industry impacting men and women altogether. In 2016, 4.6 billion hours were spent on the largest porn site. Now that amount of traffic is more traffic than Netflix, Amazon and Twitter combined. You see, the problem is just not a distant problem. The problem is a lurking problem in every household today. And that is because we somehow end up searching meaning and purpose for life through the pleasures of life. How about popularity? People also look at popularity as a means of meaning in their life. And when I talk about popularity, I'm going to add in wealth and position and success as well. Jack Higgins wrote this book called As the Eagle Has Landed. Somebody asked him, Jack, what is that one thing you wished you knew before you went on to become the top successful executive? He said, I wish somebody told me that it is pretty lonely out there. You see, any position that comes to you comes with a cost. It comes the cost of your family, comes with the cost of your health as well. And also you realize that when you reach there, it's pretty lonely up there. It is Paul who writes in his book, and let me read it for us. Money, status, all the vanities hold so little interest, indeed are chasing after the wind in the light of one's finitude. Money, status, all vanities hold so little interest, indeed are chasing after the wind in the light of one's finitude. And it is one of the writers of the book of the Bible, Job, who writes, naked I come, naked I must go. Well, fourth, how about happiness? A lot of people pursue happiness as a mean to meaningful life. But did you realize happiness cannot be pursued? Just as a shadow cannot be pursued, a shadow does not exist on its own. A shadow requires an object to exist. Likewise, happiness is not something that you can pursue in life. It will run away from you. Happiness is a byproduct of something else that you do. So happiness cannot be pursued either as a means to meaningful life. Well, I suppose instead of asking what brings meaning to life, we must be asking who brings meaning to life. Now, why do I say that? Because many times we say, you are the reason for my living. We would look at our wife or our child, and in some cases, we might look at our pet, be it a dog or a cat, and we say, that particular person or that particular thing brings meaning and significance to my life. But you see, given the fact that all organisms die, can we derive our significance and our meaning from the significant other in this case? Perhaps not, because they are also bound to die. Dr. John Lennox gives the excellent illustration of Aunt Matilda's cake. He talks about Aunt Matilda, who was making this cake one day in our kitchen. And as she was about to get over with the cake, she was visited by the top-notch scientist of the world. The first one to come in was the biochemist. The biochemist came in and looked at the cake, and he analyzed the cake in the sense of the structure of the proteins, the fats, etc. And followed by the biochemist was the chemist, who came in and talked about the elements involved in their bonding. And then came the physicist. The physicist analyzed the cake in terms of the fundamental particles. And then came the mathematician, who looked at the cake and talked about the set of elegant equations to describe the behavior of those particles. Well, each of the scientists gave a wonderful description about what the cake is made of. But who would ever tell us as to why the cake is made for? You see, that question of the why, of course the how is talked about by the scientist. The question about the why can only be answered by Aunt Matilda in this case, because she is the one who created the cake. She certainly had a purpose in mind even as she was baking it. Similarly, I would think if we have to know the meaning and the purpose of life, we have to ask the one who made us, the one who created us, and he alone would be in the position to tell us why he made us at the first place. Of course, you would have philosophers and poets and artists who would talk about the what of the human life, but the why, I would think, can only be answered by the one who has made us. And it is Augustine of Hippo who led a very licentious life, and is attributed to his mother, whose prayer brought him back into track. And he said, "Our hearts are made for you, O God, and it is restless until it finds its rest in thee, O God." Our hearts are restless until it finds its rest in thee, O God. Isn't it Pascal who said, "There is a God-shaped vacuum in the heart of every man and every woman, and it cannot be satisfied by any created thing whatsoever, but only by God the Creator, and made known through Jesus Christ." You and I recognize that. The God-made vacuum in that. But many times what happens is we run away from the one who's created us to fulfill this vacuum with the things around us. We go after love, we go after sensual pleasures, we go after popularity, we go after happiness, we go after health and wealth and whatnot. But yet you and I know that this vacuum that is God-shaped and can only be fulfilled by God awaits for God, our Creator, to fulfill it. Solomon was the wisest of all kings. In fact, so wise that he wrote 1,005 songs. He had 3,000 proverbs, ruled for about 40 long years, well versed in zoology, in history, and all other disciplines. In fact, he was the wealthiest of the kings possible, collected a tribute amounting to 18,125 kilograms of gold. Now that's a lot of gold out there. And of course, he also had 700 wives and 300 concubines. And you must listen to this man of great experience with so many wives and concubines. He writes, "I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity, a chasing after the wind." I have seen everything done under the sun. Indeed, everything is vanity, a chasing after the wind. What is he saying? Your pursuit after popularity, your pursuit after love, your pursuit after sensual pleasures, your pursuit after happiness is nothing but a chasing of the wind. And what does Solomon end the book with? He says the conclusion of the whole matter is to fear God and to follow His commandments. My friends, can I say this? We would run, and you would run as much as you could run in search of meaning and purpose in life, but you will only find meaning and purpose in the one who has created you, and His name is Jesus. It is only when you know Him, it is only when you recognize Him, it is only when you confess His name into your life, is when you truly even recognize how to love this significant other. And it is Dr. Ravi Zacharias who says, the perversion of sexuality starts the moment you love the other person for yourself and not for themselves. The perversion of sexuality starts the moment you love the other person for yourself, not for themselves. The moment you love the other person for your purposes, for your selfish reasons, you are perverting love in itself. It is only in the love of God that we are even capable of loving the other person, not for ourselves, but for the worth of the other person. It is in God we are truly able to love, not just ourselves, we are truly able to love the other significant persons of our life and the community and the nation at large. It is God who teaches us to love, and that happens when we truly find meaning and purpose anchored in the one who has created us. You know what the problem today is? People have enough to live by, but nothing to live for. They have enough means to live by, but no meaning to live for. Given the fact that all organisms die, what then makes your life meaningful?